Right, good evening. My name is David. I use he, him pronouns, and today I am running a session of Grand Guignol. Um, Grand Guignol is a belonging outside belonging game from Tales from the Wildwood. Unfortunately, I've completely blanked on the author's name. I will just bring that up. By Luke Jordan, that's it. It is a belonging outside belonging game, so it's in the mold of Dream Apart, Dream Askew, and other games that have followed since. In particular, it is heavily inspired by the TV series Penny Dreadful, and in general, kind of Victorian Gothic, Victorian society and Victorian Gothic tropes. So that's kind of what we'll be playing with today. I will give a proper introduction to the game in a second. This game is being run as part of the Gauntlet, which is an online role-playing group that we meet up. We have a sort of a calendar of games that we play online, much like this one, where you can sign up and join in. We also have a series of podcasts. We have a monthly gaming zine called Codex. We have forums, all that sort of stuff. You can find out more about who we are and what we do at gauntlet-rpg.com. The game we're playing today is specifically part of the Gauntlet community online gaming what's the word I want to use? Campaign isn't quite the right word, but we're basically I think approximately quarterly we have these sessions where we specifically open up games, lots of one shots for people who may not normally play games with us to join in and play some games. This is our Gauntlet Con edition. We usually have our annual Gauntlet Con on this around this time of the year, and that's what we're doing today. Though I believe all of my players this evening are staunch Gauntlet veterans. I will just ask everyone to do a quick introduction of themselves now, and then I'll explain a little bit more about the game that we'll all be playing this evening. So I will go around in the order I can see people on my Zoom. So Patrick, would you like to introduce yourself first?
Sure, I'm Patrick. You see him pronouns. I've been playing with the Gauntlet for quite a while now. And I've played a couple of belonging outside belonging games, not nearly as many as have interested me. And I absolutely love the first Penny Dreadful series, so I'm super looking forward to this. I've not gotten a chance to try it at all yet.
Brilliant, thank you very much. And Sam?
Yes, my name is Sam Zimmerman. I use he and him pronouns. I've played a lot of Belonging Outside Belonging. I've never played a Grand Guignol, and I'm very much looking forward to it.
Brilliant, thank you very much. And last but not least, Puckett, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hi there, I am Puckett. I am three cats in a trench coat masquerading as a human being, and I have played a fair bit of Belonging Outside Belonging games, though not as much as I have wanted to. So I'm looking forward to this, especially considering it's in a slightly different setting.
Great, thank you. And in fact, actually, I must admit, I've not played a huge amount of Belonging Outside Belonging myself, so I am glad to have some experienced people along as well, as I'll explain shortly, and as I'm sure all of you I'm directly talking to are aware. Obviously, this is a game with shared control, GM lists, however you want to phrase it. I am facilitating this evening, but that's more about just helping move things along rather than actually controlling any element of the game itself. I'll go through the cats, which is distinct to the cats we have on the screen, is an acronym for concept, aim, tone, and subject matter, which is basically just a quick way of establishing what this game is about and what to expect from it. If you have any questions or anything like that as I go through this, feel free to jump in and ask away. Concept. So as I said, it's mostly covers what I've said already, but this is a game of belonging outside belonging. based on Dream Apart, Dream Askew. Everybody will be taking on both a character as well as taking on responsibilities for portraying the world, NPCs, all that other stuff as well. As I said, I'll be facilitating and to an extent teaching the game, but I am not GMing this game. I have no additional authority in this game over any other player. So the game itself is set in Victorian London. It draws on particular themes of the queer Gothic. All of the characters will have elements of monstrousness at their heart, and there's this big question of the struggle between sort of conformity to what society expects and sort of self-determination. One of the things you'll notice when we play this game, for those of you familiar with Belong Outside Belonging games, is that this game doesn't refer to strong and weak moves, but rather transgressive and inhibited moves. Mechanically speaking, they are the same respectively, but just a little bit of additional phrasing there. Also, again, it's slightly different to some other Belonging Outside Belonging games. There are no kind of codified normal moves, basic moves, whatever you want to call them. The general rule of thumb is if you are doing something that isn't either transgressive or an inhibited move, you can probably do what you want, but one of the players of an element of the world or another player may jump in and complicate things. We'll obviously negotiate all that sort of stuff as we play. The aim of this game is, as I said, mostly it's to explore our characters and how they interact with one another and the outside world. In terms of your controlling setting elements, the aim is to make the world interesting for the other characters, introduce tensions, introduce problems for them to deal with. Like a lot of other Belonging Outside Belonging games, Grand Guignol isn't really focused on like overcoming challenges or direct confrontations. We can have that sort of thing happen, but the framework of the game isn't really designed to resolve those sort of conflicts. There's no real resolution mechanic in this game, so it's much more about just us exploring the world and deciding what we want to happen. Rather than having big struggle, I shouldn't say big struggles, but having big obstacles to overcome. In terms of tone, as I said, Penny Dreadful is one of the big touchstones here, and in general Gothic fiction. So thinking of that kind of tone, it's kind of a bit dark but also intimate. A big focus on hidden desires of the characters, how they transgress against society, as well as obviously more overt horror elements. There is some of the setting elements touch on magic and the supernatural, as well as sort of the mundane horror of Victorian capitalism and Victorian society as a whole, which is more than gruesome enough without the need to resort to the supernatural. And that's also a thing we'll kind of get onto once we start discussing a little bit more about our world and the characters we play in it. That's sort of how much full-on supernatural we want is kind of a bit of a slider for us to play about with. There's sort of a lot of scope with the way these playbooks are set up. If you want to literally be a vampire, that's cool. If you want to stick to a more sort of mundane non-supernatural character, most of the playbooks also fit that as well, with maybe one or two exceptions. So yeah, and our last is our subject matter. So we've already had a little bit of a chat about this offline, but there's the potential to get in some fairly dark places with this game. I said both on the kind of supernatural horror front and on the more mundane tackling of Victorian society. So violence and sexual content are both kind of intrinsic parts of the genre, and are likely to feature in the game. This potentially involves content touching on themes of sexual violence. How near to that we want to stray, we will discuss as part of our general safety discussion in a moment. aside from this, we've kind of got some of the stuff that the Gothic plays around with. We get themes of mental health and pressure to conform to societal expectations, those things that are likely to play a fairly prominent part. Themes of economic exploitation, bigotry, sexism, stereotypical homophobia, those sort of things can come up to some extent or another. In terms of body horror, we may have body horror, cannibalism, sacrifice, mind control. All of those sorts of things can feasibly come up. But as I say, we will be using some safety tools as part of this. We will be using lines and veils as one of our primary safety tools. Lines are things that we won't have come up in the game at all. That includes alluding to them in character backstory, any other sort of discussion. We just won't touch that. So that's what lines are for. And those can be used to exclude sort of things that might otherwise be likely to come up, as well as things that are a lot less likely to do so. Veils are things that we use to where we're happy for the content to exist in the game, but we don't want to go into too much detail on it. We don't want to sort of get into, say, you know, we're happy for violence to happen, but we don't really want big blow by blow discussions of you know, the injuries themselves, that sort of thing. That's what might come behind a veil. So we can kind of just touch on leave those sort of backgrounded or fade to black or whatever else. So that's lines and veils. I also personally with lines and veils I use an additional couple of categories. We have things that we're interested in seeing. These are either things that as players we think, hey, actually that's a really cool thing, I want to see that in the game. Or also from my perspective, I have flagged some things up as interested as just that are things that are quite likely to come up due to the nature of the game. So just to flag those up for people's attention as much as anything else. They can still be lined, veiled, whatever else as need be. The last one I tend to use is an ask first. This is for sort of stuff where maybe in general you're happy with certain content, the possibility of certain content coming up, but your kind of issues with it can be very context specific, and that's just basically in there as a reminder that if you're going to bring up a certain thing. So for instance, like we might say, like I'm happy for the concept of bullying to be a thing that's going to be in the game. We're playing a game about high school, which we're very much not here. But you know, we're playing a game about high school, so bullying can come up. But I like people to check in first to just make sure that we're not, you know, going to be hitting on bullying in a way that someone is going to be particularly sensitive to. So we just have a quick, you know, couple of seconds of out of character discussion first, saying, I think this might be where we're going. Are people happy with that? And if not, we don't. Simple as, really. Other tools we'll be using, we'll be playing under the open door policy. This is basically just to say, if at any time you need to leave the game, feel free to do so. You don't need to explain yourself. If you need to leave, you need to leave, and that's perfectly fine. And whether that be, you know, the doorbell's just rung and you've got to go answer it, and you'll be back in a minute, or you just need to leave the session because you're not really feeling it, or whatever else, you can do so. That's fine. I would ask, I mean, if you can let me know if you're going to be back, or if you're definitely not going to be back. If you can, like, send me a message or whatever to let me know, that is helpful. Just so I can then manage sort of expectations. But don't feel that you need to. As I said, if you need to leave, you need to leave, and that's perfectly fine. So that's open door policy. We'll also be using script change. This is a series of video commands that we can use to kind of control how we play the game. There are references to, there's a little PDF of this in the shared folder if you do want to check that out in more detail. But broadly, I think the most useful commands from my perspective are pause, which you can call at any moment if we just want to break away from the action for a second. That might be, again, because you just need to take a quick break from a scene for whatever reason. whether that be that it's getting quite intense and you just want a minute or two to breathe. You're kind of a bit, which is definitely something I think that can happen in Belonging Outside Belonging games a bit, is that you're kind of not quite sure where you want to go with the scene. You'd rather cut away to something else and then revisit that scene later or something else. Or if we just want to have a quick out of character discussion about anything pertaining to the game, like saying, hey, are we okay if I take the scene in this direction? Is that cool with everyone? Could people be cool if I introduce this element? Anything like that. We can call a pause and have those discussions. We have fast forward, which can be used to just quickly skip over something. This can be used a bit like a veil if there is some content that you're like, okay, I don't really want to go any further on this. I just want us to move past it. We can use fast forward for that. Or if a scene is just kind of not really has kind of reached that point where it's just sort of circling a bit and there isn't really any resolution, we just want to get on to the next interesting thing, you can also just call a fast forward for that if you think it's necessary. Though then we have rewind, which can basically just be used to quickly go back and change something that's just happened. This might be again because we've introduced something I think actually I'm not really happy with us going that way. Can we go back and do it slightly differently? It might just be you think actually the way I phrased that didn't come out quite right. I just want to change how I said it because it had implications I didn't intend or whatever. There's a couple of others as well, but I think those are the main ones that we need to be most aware of. Finally, we also have the X card in play. The X card can be called at any point if some content comes up that you are not happy with us playing with, and you want to move past it and not feature it. You can just call out that you'd like to X card something, or you can make an X with your hands or put an X in the chat. But as I said, as I usually say, calling out is the way I will probably notice quickest. So that's just be aware of that. If you X card anything, I may ask you exactly what it is that you're X carding, just so that we all know what to avoid and what to take out. But I won't ask you to justify why you were doing that. And it can be for any reason. It can be because you're not comfortable with the content, or it might just be you feel that tonally it's a bit off, and you don't want us to kind of have that tonal discordance or whatever in the scene. If something you have introduced gets X carded, don't take it personally. Don't feel the need to apologize profusely. We don't always know what what content we're not going to be happy with until it arrives sometimes. So that's it's not something that we can always predict. And as ever, the best safety tool to use is just generally getting consent for what you're doing before you do it, and just checking in with people that they're happy with where we're going with the scene and whatever else. So yeah, those are our safety tools. I know, as I said, I know you've had a few minutes with the lines and veils anyway, but I'm just going to pause our recording quickly so I can just recap over those. So yeah, we've gone through our lines and veils, and now we're going to go through our characters, our character playbooks first. So what we'll do is we will read through the what's on line 6 for each playbook, if you're looking at the character keeper, but basically the little introduction blurb for each playbook. I guess I will start with the first one, and then I'll ask again each one of you in turn to read out the next one along, and then we'll decide which of these we might like to bring into play. So I'm going to start off with the gate. Where does it come from, this nameless power that guides your steps and troubles your dreams? You had a normal life once before it woke inside you, sprouting like a midnight weed. Now it coils within your heart and lurks in your shadow and whispers terrible truths to you in the dead of night as you lie in bed too scared to sleep. Where does it come from, and where will it lead you? So the gate is a haunted individual afraid of their own potential. Pardon. Their powers and struggles are unnerving, internal, and inviting. So yeah, checking what order I have people in. So Patrick, if you'd like to read out the beast.
Sure. So the beast. You're not like the rest of them, these nice people with their normal failings. You never have been. There's something growling deep in your soul. A monster caged and terrible and full of strange desires. You've kept it trapped for many years, deadening its howls with pleasure and distraction, and locking its unspeakable appetites deep down where no one else can see. But you can feel your grip slipping. And any day now, you'll lose control and set it free. The beast is a conflicted individual fleeing from pursuit. Their powers and struggles are violent, transformative, and relentless.
Perfect, thank you. And Sam, if you'd like to introduce the scholar.
I'd be glad to. You don't know why no one else sees what you see. Your fellow scholars pursue knowledge for its own sake, gazing up at the distant stars, obsessing over the latest Amazonian ferns, droning on about century-old wars, all pointless save to feed their bloated egos and chase the thrill of discovery. There is only one worthy goal of a scholar, the mystery that you chase. It is elusive, vital, and beautiful, and compared to it, all else is insignificant, and it is your purpose to solve it at last. The scholar is a driven individual on a quest for answers. Their powers and struggles are studied, ontological, and unprecedented.
Great, thank you. And Puckett, if you'd like to introduce the hunter.
You were happy once upon a time. You had people who you adored, friends to laugh with at the drinking house and the theater, a job to fill your pockets, a roof to cover your head, countless little pleasures to brighten your days. You had a life. You were happy. Once. And now all you have is a mission that you pursue with a brutal simplicity of purpose. Find those who took it all from you, hear them admit their crimes, and deliver the bloody judgment that society never will. The hunter is a wounded individual, pursuing a vendetta. Their powers and struggles are brutal, ethical, and personal.
Great, thank you. And actually, because I have been speaking a lot already, I will go back around to Patrick if you'd like to introduce the ward.
Sure. So the ward. There's a window in your room that you'd like to stare out, and beyond it, the whole wider world. Families tied by love, not chained by duty. Freedom and adventure, not propriety and disapproval. Women who drink and fight and gamble, girls who kiss other girls, and people who get to choose their own names, their own clothes, their own lives. And any day now, you'll get your chance to join them. The ward is a sheltered individual dreaming of escape. Their powers and struggles are social, stifling, and empathetic.
Brilliant, thank you very much. So these are our five playbooks. In a moment, I will go around and ask what people are interested in playing, and we can start to narrow that down and make some choices, and then begin building out our characters. If you want sort of a bit more detail on each of the playbooks, obviously there are the PDFs themselves are linked in the shared folder. I can put a link to that actually if people need it. Otherwise, down towards the bottom of the character keeper, there's also a section that says play to find out and tips. These give you a little bit more information about what that character is about, what sort of questions you should be sort of aiming into, and how to sort of play that character. So feel free to check those out as well. So Patrick, are there any of these that you're particularly interested in looking at?
I think I was particularly drawn to the gate and the ward, but I also find the scholar interesting. So,
cool. Yeah, brilliant, thank you. Sam, how about you?
I am currently bouncing back and forth between scholar and hunter.
Nice. And how about yourself, Puckett?
I was looking at, just because I'm extra, the scholar, the hunter, and the ward.
Awesome. So yeah, it sounds like we've definitely got some compatible choices. And I will say, like, I honestly am happy with any of them, I think. So I will throw it back around to To you, Patrick, if you'd like to go for the which do you think you'll go for?
I think since there's no competition on it, I will go for the gate.
Cool, perfect. Yeah, if you want to, put your name in there, and I'll take people through the character. I mean, again, you all played a lot of BOV, so character creation is fairly straightforward, but I will sort of give you all a quick guide in it. So yeah, Sam, how about yourself?
I'm marginally more interested in the hunter, though the scholar is basically neck and neck. If Puckett, you have a strong opinion.
I can go with either the scholar or the ward if you have a marginally stronger preference for the hunter.
Perfect.
Yeah, cool. And yeah, so Puckett, which do you think you're going to go for of the I should also say at this point for clarity, I was kind of already very tempted towards the beast, and as no one has picked them, I think that's where I'll be going for. So, but yeah, how about yourself?
You know what? I think I want to go full on Pollyanna and play the ward.
Nice. It's a very fun one, that. Perfect. So I will hide the scholar. It says unable to find the right button. Cool. So perfect. The way characters work in this is, broadly speaking, we have just several choices to make. There are lots of questions with responses onto sort of laid out for you there. In terms of how I've laid it out on the playbook, where you have multiple choices for the same thing, I've just put all of the options into that box, and you can just delete out the ones you don't want. There are drop downs for the others. Things I want to specifically call out. Obviously, if you can write in your own answers to these as well if you want. Don't feel bound to the to what's been offered in the drop downs or what have you. But obviously, some of these are very much intended to point the story in certain ways. Of particular importance on that front, I think, everyone should have options for 2 ways others see you and 2 ways you see yourself. Obviously, setting up this importance of how you fit into society, what you're really like, all of that. Of particular importance in those is obviously you can choose for the same options for how the world sees you and how you see yourself, if there is a commonality on that. Obviously, if you don't, then there's maybe some contest in there. The other thing to be aware of is that the playbooks aren't locked to certain genders, but some of those questions on there point to certain genders, and whether you either play into that or play against it, or however else you wish to engage in it, that is absolutely up to you. But just to make it clear, those are very very much an aspect that you can play into if you wish. I think that is it. So I'll give everyone a moment to go through and start filling out their choices for that. And I will do likewise. Cool. So yeah, I think we've all got our characters. What I'll do is we'll do one round. We'll just go through in character keeper order. Ask everyone to introduce their character, tell us a little bit about them, and then once we've all been around that once, we'll go through and start doing the linking questions to see how all of our characters fit in with one another. Patrick, if you'd like to start by introducing who you'll be playing.
Buttons. I'm playing the Gate, Kaine Thornheart. And let's see. So sort of the witchy haunted archetype. The lure on my character is a gift or promises to stay with me. They can gain a token. But Kaine, he's pale, he's gaunt, he's thin, he's always in black sort of funereal clothing, but always sharp, crisp, expensive looking clothes. The picks I made for his look are studied composure and fever bright eyes, as he's just got like these gleaming, sort of glistening eyes that are constantly darting around because he sees things that are or aren't there. And he has a very like still studied face because he's learned that when people see him reacting to things they can't see and see him interacting with invisible things, he ends up in sanatoriums, and there's drugs, and there's doctors who don't really know what they're talking about. So if he just stays calm and composed, it'll all be okay. My wardrobe styles, I tweaked antique jewelry to be an antique pocket watch. Very old, handed down in his family. Again, the funeral clothes, sharp silk suit. I think the way others see me is sort of lonely and mysterious, that like Victorian brooding sort of sexiness. But he just sees himself as cursed and dangerous to everyone around him. His gift first awakened from learning profane philosophy at your heathen school, which I think it was an appropriately creepy and weird and beshadowed Victorian school that he went off to. There was a great vast library with all sorts of hidden passageways and corners in it, and he found a shelf of books that were in a strange language, one that he had never seen before, but he managed to find one book in amongst them that was like a sort of Rosetta Stone, a text in several different languages that he managed to start deciphering this language. And once he sort of understood the writing, is when the weirdnesses really started. When he would be passing other people, other students or professors in the halls or out in the town when he wasn't in the university itself, they would turn to him with dark, unnatural eyes and start muttering in what he quickly realized was this language, this strange, dark language, whispering secrets and threats and horrible omens to him. And I think that's when his reality started to sort of spin off kilter and fall apart. He left his university years ago. He thinks he's pretty sure, he's almost certain. But these flashbacks, these visions of people or places or times at school keep haunting him, so that he's always got in the back of his head this like wondering of, am I still there? Is any of this real? What is happening to me, and what is time? Oh, you're muted.
I'm being awful at that today, but yes, thank you very much for that. And next up is in fact me. So I am playing the Beast playbook, and I am playing Achilles Lambert, though he these days he mostly just goes by Lee. He is the second son of a lord, though is not exactly mixing in polite company these days, as we'll get on to in a moment. So my lure, and again, I think probably everyone's familiar with these, having played some Belong Outside Belonging before, but lures are things that when other characters act in a certain way, they can gain a token, which they can then use to spend to power their transgressive moves, as we'll see shortly. And my lure is when someone accepts you for who you truly are or asks you for protection, they gain a token. So that's sort of how to play into Lee. So yeah, as I say, Lee has that aristocratic bearing to him. It's quite tall, quite well built. Has a sort of aquiline nose, though somewhat broken these days. He has calloused hands, clearly has used his fists a lot in his time. He also tends to bare his teeth quite a bit. Sometimes that's in a smile, but it's very rarely a friendly looking smile, even when it is. He has that dangerous look to him, just a dangerous edge to him. How he dresses, he wears, in general, his clothing is sort of nondescript, though he has he wears what are clearly a very, very good pair of riding boots, though they have been resold on more than one occasion. He has an old gold pocket watch, which again is clearly worth some money, but has also again clearly been through the wars somewhat. And yeah, he doesn't tend to wear these days sort of fancy suits, and like much more likely to be found just wearing kind of like a sailor's knit jumper, rather than anything fancier than that. He is seen by the world as being attractive but dissolute. He is. There are rumors about him probably throughout most of proper society that paint him in a less than favorable light, seen as a drunken wastrel in general, generally unseemly. He sees himself as a violent man. He knows he has this hunger within him that he is unable to control. So my questions are: what happened the first time you lost control? And I will admit, because this option was on the list, I had to pick it. But the first time Lee lost control, he kissed a handsome stable boy. And I think that this is Lee's attraction to men is something that's very much followed him throughout his life. Is a source of discord between him and his family, and is one of the main reasons he is no longer feels welcome at home. He is running from representatives of his family who want to get him under control, is probably the best way to put it, get him settled down, or at least just put somewhere where he isn't a constant source of embarrassment to them. And the bestial mark that he bears is a taste for raw meat. He likes his meat very, very rare, if not raw. There's just that very carnivorous air to him in general. I myself am still at the moment undecided whether I actually want him to be like a literal werewolf or something, or just play more off of that angry and sort of occluded self. So I will probably see how that comes out in play. But yeah, I think that is Achilles for the moment. So next, Sam, if you'd like to introduce who you'll be playing.
Yeah, sure. I will be playing as Veronica Highchurch, who's a kind of a disinherited noblewoman type deal. Her lure is that when someone helps you to pursue justice or offers you healing or solace, they gain a token. I chose a name with a tragic history that kind of my family was destroyed by something. We don't quite know what yet. I'm potentially the only remaining member of my family. My look is hurt eyes and a clenched jaw. I have hobnail boots, a peaked flat cap, and an oilskin coat. People see me as heartless and a man. I think she presents as masculine, not out of any like dysphoria type thing, but because it gets her into places and she can get a lot more done when she's not tied down by the very feminine kind of expectations. And so she kind of rebels against that, and people just assume that because she's doing these things, she must be a man. So there you go. And she sees herself as very righteous and in control. Whether or not those are actually true, we will find out together. Three things you have lost. I've only picked two because I misread that. She has lost her father's approval, and she has lost a life without fear, both of which were because her family has been destroyed. And she has kept the belief that the world is just, and she is that justice. She blames three monsters for the death of her family. There was some creature in the shadows who was also a loved one who betrayed her. We don't know who that is yet. And she also blames herself for not seeing it earlier. Yeah, I think that's all I got on Veronica.
That's great. Thank you very much. And yeah, Puckett, if you'd like to introduce your character.
I am Cassandra Winthrop. You may call me Cassie. I actually prefer that. Cassandra's a bit formal. When someone helps me to fulfill a dream or offers me escape or freedom, you gain a token. I have a wistful smile and a longing face, and I usually wear simple, sweet-smelling linen dresses, and, well, whenever possible, I try to wear no shoes. I prefer bare feet, especially if I'm in soft grass. Otherwise, plain ankle boots will do. Other people sometimes see me as silly or naive, but I just think I'm compassionate and virtuous. I try to see the best in people, not the worst. And people often dismiss me for that. I dream of doing something reckless or finding a real home or making true friends. Daddy actually is quite insistent upon me not doing any of those things. He expects me to uphold the dignity of the family name and its legacy and its traditions. He wants grandsons. But he never asks me what I want. And between his pressure and society's expectations in my name, I often feel trapped. But I'm desperately looking for an adventure.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So yeah, we've all got what's the word I'm looking for? We've all got our characters introduced now. So what we'll do next is we will do. You'll see in the playbooks or on the character keeper, you have a selection of three characters. one of which you'll be asking to the player on your left, one of which you'll be asking to the player on your right, with obviously wrapping around for Kaine and Cassie. Yeah, and I think I'll go back around to the beginning. And Kaine, do you wish to ask the first of those questions to either, to either myself or to Cassie?
Yeah, for Cassie, I'd like to ask, why do I make you uneasy?
Perhaps because you have the freedom to be moody and haunted. In my situation, I would be scolded quite a bit for being anything other than, well, proper.
That's such a great dynamic too, because from inside his head, he's constantly trying to control his reactions and his emotions. Cool. So for Lee, I want to ask, when did you first see me use my gift?
Oh, that's a good one. Wait, am I? No, good. I didn't mute myself. That was foresighted of me. Yeah. So I think maybe it was at a. I'm not going to say like a society party, because I think it was a bit more, less formal than that. But I think maybe a gathering of young gentlemen, and I think maybe you were telling well, not telling someone's fortune, but I mean, you were kind of yeah, maybe nothing as formal as an actual seance, but I think that there was maybe some sort of some sort of connection that you made, some sort of spiritual expression. Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, next I will ask. So my first one is, I don't think I'm going to ask this one to Kaine, is what need do you have for my violence?
There are things that I see, things that aren't of this world and aren't entirely in it. And most people don't believe me. Sometimes I don't believe me, but I think there was a time when you sensed one of them near me, when you managed to wound it and scare it off. I need your protection. No one else has ever been a part of this with me like you have, and I don't think I can. I've never won against these things. I've never driven one off.
Yeah, cool. I like it. And my second question, which I'll be asking to Veronica, is when did you see me lose control?
Yeah. First off, I want to apologize. Somebody is mowing the lawn right outside my window, so sorry for that.
No worries. I can't hear anything. So that's
fair warning. And do you want this to be an antagonistic relationship or a cooperative relationship?
I am happy for either, whichever way you'd like to take that. I'm happy to go.
It's a one shot. Let's make this interesting. Did you lose? What were you the lover who lost control and destroyed my house?
Oh. That's interesting.
Do we want to go that hard?
I wonder actually if this is okay, just to kind of mostly preserve that, but to add a bit of a twist to it. Mostly because I mean, I suppose, you know, on the one hand, it's just a one-off, but also to kind of keep a bit of interest in like keeping that going. I wonder if maybe I did lose control and destroy the thing, but you know that it was someone else, like pulling my strings, as it were. So
yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I think the other
yeah, or something different if you want. But yeah, that's what
I was going to say. Maybe it's more interesting if I blame you, but it wasn't you.
Yeah, that works too. Yeah. Yeah, no, I like that.
So yeah, you were actually fine. You did lose control, but somebody else took that opportunity of and actually did the deed.
Yeah, sure thing. Cool. Yeah, no, that's awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
And yeah, so Veronica, next. Yeah, your questions.
Yeah, so I'm gonna toss this one right back to you. Who have I hurt for you, and did you ask me to?
That's good. So I think I'm going to ask I think I'm going to answer the second one first. And I don't think I asked you to. I think this was maybe something you did of your own volition. But I think it was. I think maybe I think there was maybe somebody somebody blackmailing me, and you and I think that you took it upon yourself to scare them off, as it were, rather than it being something I requested you to do. But I think if perhaps it offended your sense of justice.
Like that. That's good. And then Cassie, how do you feel about my brutality?
Oh, it's most exciting. I've never seen a woman act so physically forcefully before. Daddy would be most furious if he knew that I was associating with you.
Cool. Excellent. And so, Cassie, if you would like to ask your questions.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Do either of you have a strong feeling about which of those two questions you would like to answer? Or would be really interesting to answer?
I think I've got one for the first one.
Okay. All right, then. Kaine, what was the first thing you noticed about me?
The first thing I noticed about you is that for some reason, most of the time around you, the world is normal and bright. The creatures don't whisper to me. No black-eyed strangers come up and mutter things at me. It's not like you're a ward against monsters. I mean, I'm imagining we've had some encounters in the dark before. It's not like you're a protection, but just, I don't know. There's a way that you see the world as hopeful and bright, and for some reason around you it usually is.
What a delightful answer. And Veronica, How have I caught your fancy lately?
I think that Veronica is intensely jealous of the ease of your life, the kind of simple beauty and everything, and she believes that spending time with you and trying to experience, like, you're the only way that Veronica can experience any of that anymore. And so she kind of comes to you to kind of vicariously get a little bit of that calmness, that simplicity.
So would you say that she's more, well, smitten, it clearly isn't the right word.
I don't think that this is a romantic thing. I think this is a, like,
it sounds,
it's nice having a friend who actually, like, can take me out of this kind of chaos, complicated world.
okay.
Awesome. Thank you. So yeah, cool. So we have our characters sorted now. We have sort of how we sort of relate to each other to an extent. I am just hurriedly entering, so I realized I missed off one element from the well, not setting elements, but close as, which is London itself. So I will just quickly pop in options on there. So I'm just thinking of a sensible way of doing this. I'm just going to do is add on an extra bit of this. Okay, so yeah, sorry about that. So yeah, if we go over into the setting elements tab now, the first thing we're going to do is just have a little bit of a discussion about London itself, which is on the very far right of this tab. So I've just put in there a box for aesthetics and worries and the lists next. And again, these are on the PDF handout, if which might be an easier reference, but just so those are in there. So what I'm going to do now is I'll just go around and ask everyone first to choose one option off of the aesthetics list, and then I'll do that round for everyone, and then I'll come back and do worries. So I will start off. Patrick, is there one of the aesthetics on that list, or something else entirely that appeals to you?
Definitely. I am definitely drawn to thickness.
Perfect, yeah. And I'll come back around to myself last this time, I think. Sam, are there is there anything on that list that you want to see for our aesthetics of London itself?
There's something always creepy about empty streets.
Yeah.
That one.
Cool. And Puckett, is there anything on that list or anything else that you would like to see in our aesthetics for the city?
You know, got to go with electric streetlights.
Yep, sure thing. That's
pretty much the Victorian Gothic, isn't it?
Yeah, just when those first streetlights are starting to come in. Yeah, no, definitely, that's cool. And I am going to I'm going to go in a bit of a contrast to the empty streets. I'm going to go for taverns and theatres. So yeah, that sort of West End drinking, theatres, debauchery, all that sort of thing. Was there anything else on that list that anyone feels we absolutely need to include? No, cool. In which case, we'll go on to the. I'll just delete those out so it's not stretching out the thing. We'll go on to the worries. These are the problems that the people of the city are facing as part of their everyday life. Again, I will. No, I tell you what, I'll do it in reverse this time. So which means I'll start with myself. I'm going to. Oh, go on. Let's go for a nice, obvious one. Bloodless bodies keep turning up in the sewers. Let's get some vampires out there front and center. Oh, something else. So yeah, Puckett, any of those worries you'd like to see him play?
London calling. The Thames keeps flooding the slums. And I live by the river.
No, that didn't work. Okay, so thank you. So yeah, Sam, is there one there you'd like to choose?
Yeah, I love the aesthetic of whispered voices on the wind, so I'm going to grab that one.
Cool. Patrick, is there one there you'd like to pick?
Hurriedly looking for a different one. I also like voices on the wind. Yeah. I like the ghost ship docked yesterday with all of her crew missing.
Cool. That's a nice one.
Continue all of the signifiers for vampires, see whether they're true or just false leads.
Exactly. And I think I'm going to pick one last one. Motivated by two reasons. Says yes, someone saw Witchfire out on Blackheath Moor, just to give us both as to give us an excuse to get out into a slightly more rural location, such as any rural areas near London themselves actually are. And also because I actually used to live really close to there when I was working down in London, and I used to go out there walking quite often. So
nice. That's the other one I was trying to choose between there.
Cool. Perfect. So yeah, that is our kind of general London aesthetics and problems going on. So we can refer back to those as we need, but that's what gives us some ideas where we're going. So now what we'll do, we have these setting elements, which we'll have a quick look through. So I'm actually thinking I am going to go back on what I initially said, and I think I will go through and ask everyone to choose one of the setting elements that they are more interested in seeing in play, and we'll then do things a bit more collaboratively. But I think rather than going through all 6, just because that might take us a little bit more time, we'll just each pick one that we would like to see in play and focus on it. If we touch on one of the other areas as part of what we're doing, we can detail that out a bit more then, but just to give us sort of somewhere to start from. So I will just go over, do a very quick overview. Actually, no, again, I will do the same as before. I will get, we'll just go through and just read out that very first tab or two where it just says, gives the name and gives the brief description. And maybe actually the pickup when, because that's quite a useful thing to bear in mind. Also, again, I know you're familiar with this probably, but in general, it is a good idea to choose one that you'll start out controlling, that your character is slightly less likely to get involved with, just because obviously you won't be playing both sides of that conflict, as it were. So you'll end up handing off that book anyway. But yeah, those are things to think. But yeah, I'll again just go through. I'll start myself this time. So we'll go for the Wicker Ways. Before science, before Christ, before cities, nature reigned supreme. She sent plenty and famine, storms and sunshine, blessings and curses, good years and bad ones too. Science might have remade the world, but the old ways are as potent as ever. So you pick this one up when someone leaves London, remembers the dead, or wishes to go back to the way things were. So Sam, would you like to introduce the blood that flows?
Sure. The blood that flows, something terrible lurks in the heart of London, cruel and rich and thirsty. It feeds on misery and drains people dry, preying on the working poor even as it strolls amongst the corridors of power, which has killed more, the vampire's fangs or the landlord's endless greed. Pick up when someone has resources worth taking, interacts with their betters, or wishes their place in society was different.
Awesome, thank you. And Puckett, if you'd like to introduce the Specter of Modernity.
Darkness is generous and kind and comforting. It hides us from those we fear and holds us close when we are lonely, and whispers that it's okay to be the monster that they claim us. We're special. It's been waiting just for us, and it has such plans.
Brilliant, thank you. Sorry, that was actually the Embrace of Night, but no worries. Patrick, would you like to introduce the Specter of Modernity?
There's been a spirit haunting the streets of London in recent days. Wiser than an angel and mightier than any apparition, it has gripped the city with a fever that never sleeps. The modern age is here at last, and the world will never be the same.
Cool, thank you. And then I'll go for the Salt of the Earth. Even in the midst of social upheaval and occult mysteries, life still goes on. There are 1 million souls crammed into London's busy streets nowadays, strangers and neighbours and friends, all with lives and troubles and desires and judgments of their own. Pick up when someone travels within London, goes among the citizens, or wishes they could just be normal. And Sam, if you'd like to introduce the Sins of the Past.
The sins of the past. Maybe you were born in London, maybe far away, but everyone has a past. Wrongs they've done or suffered, people who've loved or hurt them, lives they've changed or ruined. You can run as far as you like, but you can't escape what you've done.
Brilliant. So, in brief, the Wicker Ways is about kind of pagan beliefs and nature. The blood that flows is about both predators and capitalism and the social structure as it is. The Specter of Modernity is obviously all about science and industry and the future. more broadly, the embrace of night is about monstrousness, essentially, and the dark, and Salt of the Earth is about the regular people of London, and sort of the city itself, and the sins of the past. It's fairly self-explanatory. It is about elements of the past that are affecting the present day, and the dangers that come within there. So yeah, I'm going to go back around again and ask everyone to pick one of these setting playbooks that they are most interested in starting off play in control as, and they will get first choice on like the aesthetics and desires and the like. Yeah, I'll just go back around from the Patrick. Is there one of these that you are interested in starting off in control of? Obviously, another consideration is what you think it's likely other characters will be interacting with.
Let's see. I think the blood that flows sounds interesting.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds good. Sam, is there one of these that you would like to start off in control of?
Are people more interested in messing around with the Specter of Modernity or the Salt of the Earth? Because I'm kind of interested in doing both of those.
We already have a little bit of the Specter of Modernity with like the electric street lights we have for an aesthetic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can do that one
I'm
then.
good with either, but yeah, no, that's cool.
Cool.
Cool. And Puckett, is there one of these that you're interested in starting out sort of controlling?
Sins of the past.
Yeah, nice. Always a good one. And I think, I'm torn here. I'm torn between the Salt of the Earth and the Embrace of Night, but I think I'm going to lean actually into the Embrace of Night, as I think we definitely want to have some spookiness going on. So I'm going to go back around to. So yeah, we'll just go back around to Patrick. Have you, if you'd like to make an initial choice of an aesthetic and a desire, and then we'll like fill in the rest of it collaboratively. I think is probably the.
Yeah, give me just a second. The desires were actually the aesthetics, just again. So.
Oh right, I must have. Sorry, I must have.
There we go. So the aesthetic that I chose first was pale marble. It's cold, it's bloodless, it's shiny and reflective. It's very rich. I like that.
Awesome.
And let's see. Let's go with excess as a desire.
Sure. Cool. I will go next, and I'll pick a second aesthetic and another desire for that, I think. And I'm going to go for I think I'm going to say family crests. Let's see if I can do this without. Yes, excellent. As another thing, is that I think we've got a bit of family stuff going on, and I think desperation seems like a nice pair with excess. Sam, would you like to choose another aesthetic and a desire?
Yeah, we have to go with sharp smiles, don't we? And then I think that the final desire is going to be lives wrung dry.
Nice. And Puckett, did you wish to choose another aesthetic choice for the blood that flows?
Relics of the past.
Cool. And yeah, then Patrick, if you would like to choose one final aesthetic, if you wish, but don't feel that you need to if you think we're good with where we are.
I do like empty platitudes as a sort of like, oh yes, we're engaging with your pain, but don't care at all.
Cool. So I will go next with the Embrace of Night. And I'm going to start off by choosing I think Writhing Shadows is the first element. And the desire I'm going to choose is uncomfortable intimacy. There we go. So yeah, Sam, would you like to choose another aesthetic and a desire?
Yes. Going along with Writhing Shadows, we need Unseen Watchers. And I'm going to have exclusivity as a desire.
Cool. And yeah, Puckett, if you would like to choose another aesthetic and a third desire.
Okay. Desire for revelation, I think.
Yeah, cool.
Ooh. No, wait a minute. Bloodshed.
Yeah, fair.
Because we already have bloodless corpses. And I think along with that, Shadow of Wings.
Cool. Perfect. Thank you very much. And Patrick, if you'd like to choose an aesthetic for that.
Yeah, I think the Shadow of Wings makes me even more sure about taloned hands.
Cool.
It's sort of in the dark, can you tell the difference between manicured nails and sharp claws?
Awesome. And I think for my last one, I'm going to pick cracked stained glass. Because I always like a bit of stained glass in there. Awesome. Thank you. So next, Sam, if you'd like to make the initial choices for the Specter of Modernity.
Yeah. So the Specter of Modernity. We need condescension, of course, as an aesthetic. And a desire is efficiency.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, so Puckett, if you'd like to choose an aesthetic and a desire for the Spectre of Modernity.
Okay. Oh. Mhm. Rational explanations.
Yeah, nice.
And I'm going to go with dispassion.
Yeah, cool. Patrick, if you'd like to choose another aesthetic and the last desire for the Specter of Modernity.
Yeah, no question for the aesthetic. Anatomical charts, bodies and pieces and that sort of thing. Oh, the blood. Let's see. Desire. I think to go along with the rational explanations is categorization, putting everything in its little box so we know what it is and we don't ever have to think about it again.
Awesome. So I think for my aesthetic choice here, I am going to go, just because it's already been brought up with a couple of characters, I'm going to say pocket watches. So yeah, Sam, if you want to choose a final aesthetic, feel free to do so. Again, don't feel that you need to if you think we're good.
I think what we've got is pretty solid. I don't have any others that I really want.
Sure thing. That is fine. So finally, we'll get on to Puckett, if you would like to kick us off with the sins of the past.
All righty. For the first desire, let's go with repentance. And for the first aesthetic, let's go with crushing guilt.
Nice. Awesome. So yeah, Patrick, if you'd like to choose an aesthetic and a desire.
Ooh, there we go. So aesthetic. Let's go with nightmares. Always fun. And a desire. Yeah, I think the Specter of Modernity is all about these rational explanations and explaining everything. So the sins of the past should be about secrets kept.
Nice. I am going to choose. Yeah, go on. No, actually, I'm going to hold back on my my tendency to go for dramatic irony. I'm instead going to go for homecoming, and I think the aesthetic I want to choose, I'm going to go for tear-stained journals. So yeah, Sam, if you'd like to choose an aesthetic.
Well, you picked the one I was going to pick. Now I have to think of a new one. Blood money.
Cool. Yeah, and finally, Puckett, if you would like to choose a final aesthetic, if you wish.
Oh, let's see. Yeah, fresh starts.
Cool. Perfect. Okay, so we've we have our initial setting elements sorted out. We have our characters. We have our links between them. So we're just going to take a quick break now. Come back about 10 past. And then we will begin our first. We'll sort of get back. Obviously, over the break, if you want to have a quick think about what you would like to see in play when we get back, we'll have a brief discussion. What's referred to as idle dreaming, about what scenes we might like to see, where we might like to go, and we'll then get into play. So yeah, see you all back in about 5 minutes. Yeah, awesome. So as I said, we'll go into the idle dreaming section now, so we can just have a quick chat about what we'd like to see happen, where we think a good place to come in on would be, which characters we'd like to see interacting, that sort of thing. I guess from my perspective, I think we've kind of got from our initial like setup, we've got these very strong intimations of vampiric activity, perhaps, or at least something odd going on. So it would be cool, I think, to see maybe Veronica and or Kaine starting to look into those odd goings on as an initial sort of thing. From my own perspective with Lee, I'm happy to be kind of dragged in on any of those sort of supernatural shenanigans, or to maybe forge some more personal side stuff. I'll just go back around again. So in the order I can see people now. So how about Veronica? What's is there, or Sam, I should say, I suppose. What have you got any thoughts on where we might like to start?
Do we want to hit the ground running, or do we want a softer scene to start us off?
Yeah, I don't mind one way or the other personally, but yeah.
Bucket makes a good point that we only have 2 hours to do this, so let's hit the ground running here.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I wouldn't mind seeing what some of the danger is, and then responding to it with like smaller talking scenes, maybe.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. So let's start. I like the idea of starting off with Veronica in like an investigation mode type deal. Kaine, what did I ask of you when I asked you to come along? Like, what specific task did I ask you to come with me for? Is this protection? Is this like, I know of your talents, so you're here to like scope out supernatural things? Or is this you've got something, a physical thing that I need?
Well, again, one shot. Let's not be coy. So I think you definitely know about his talents and his abilities, but I also like the idea that you called him to this in particular because he has a bit more ability to move in high society than you, and there's some connection that he can like get you in, or he can get you past something.
Yeah, I like that. So like the latest clue happens to be on the estate of some like high profile nobleman,
Mm-hmm.
and we have to get onto the estate first, and then we can do the exploration stuff. I love that.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds good. Just before we get going on the scene itself, I just want to check in. Puckett, is there anything either you want to add, sort of specific discussions of that, or a specific thing you would like to see for Cassie in a subsequent scene?
Oh, I'm good. I'm just thinking that the setting elements that might come into play here are the blood that flows and maybe the embrace of night.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. Is there one of those that you're more interested in starting off in control of?
Sam, with this scene, what are you thinking of the estate and the people who own it being like?
I was
Again,
imagining the owners of the estate being more victims than perpetrators.
But are you thinking like willful capitalists who are like imperialists or colonizers? Or are you just thinking like old money, like perhaps they had a title back in the family tree somewhere, and maybe they've fallen on harder times since then, or something along those lines? Or
that is a good question. I do love the like inherited money kind of holier than thou type condescending
the aristocracy of
deal.
The owner of the estate has the 7th behind his name, something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Definitely
definitely a lord of somewhere they've never been.
I feel like that's probably more sins of the past. Then, what do you think?
Yeah, that sounds good. And then we can kind of bring in the other playbooks as and when needed anyway. But yeah, that sounds good.
It just gives me a better idea of what to start with and what to focus on, as opposed to is this like new money, like shipping empires, that sort of thing, or is this basically the landed gentry from the 1700s?
Yeah. Cool.
So,
and I think if we want to start off with a good bang, the blood that flows has a move of reveal a tableau of bloody carnage or ruined lives. That sort of seems on theme with what we've been doing.
Yeah.
Do you think there are any survivors at the estate?
I think so. I don't think this was like a full destruction. I think this was like a single murder type deal.
Okay. And who do you think was murdered?
Oh, it has to be the favorite son.
Okay, I didn't know if you wanted to be like a groundskeeper, so there was more like an annoyance or a nuisance, more than something that would be actively traumatizing to them.
No, this is something they want to hide. They don't want anyone else to take advantage of their weakness in this moment.
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, in which case I will grab that the blood that flows and hold that in for us, certainly for our establishing scene. So I think we have this, and it's one of these. It obviously 150 years ago, 200 maybe, it would have been quite a nice little small country estate just on the outskirts of London. It is now very much not on the outskirts of London, though the family may not wish to publicise the fact that quite a bit of the actual estate land has been sold off to build new houses on. But the old house still remains, still has quite a nice garden. And I think where the murder has taken place, there is like a kind of Greco-Roman style, like marble gazebo thing that's sort of round. There's almost like a mini version of like the well, not the Parthenon, but the is it the Oracle, but the sort of the round one with the domed roof. There is sort of an ornamental bench thing in the middle of it, carved with sort of reliefs of classical scenes. And draped over it is a young man who has clearly been, the throat has been slit. There is blood sort of running all over the marble. which will almost certainly absolutely ruin it because marble is very absorbent. And I guess how have are the two of you on the scene yet, or how are you getting onto the scene?
I think like stepping out of a carriage that's drawn up in front of the house. Kaine is very consciously like looking his best in his sharpest, cleanest suit as he steps out. I think he even has like a top hat on that he pulls off as we come up to the house.
Yeah, and I think we see Veronica kind of step out behind him. She is dressed in this very kind of flat, nondescript. It's almost like a suit coat. It's this it's very nice, but it's also as plain as it can possibly be. It's very clean and sharp, but you couldn't tell that person from anyone else if you saw them in a crowd. She's doing her best to kind of be just somebody who's there and not the center of what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Will probably be mistaken for a valet or similar. I think as you draw up to the house and disembark, the front door will open and a man in butler's livery will step out. Or footman's livery, I suppose, probably. I've not watched Downton Abbey, so my knowledge of the precise roles is slightly off. I'll say, yes, my lord, may I help you? And offers a kind of polite bow to Kaine.
And I'll, sort of flip over and offer him my hat with one hand, and in the other I have an envelope that's written to me from Lady Learmonth of the house, and say, the lady has called for a social visit. We're old friends, of course, connections with the family, understand.
Of course, my lord. Please do step inside. We will. I will announce your arrival. Thank you. And he will kind of sweep around, open the door, and gesture for you to enter.
I think as Kaine steps in, like his footsteps are confident, his movements are smooth. But as we step into this old ancestral house, these places are always filled with spirits and ghosts. His eyes start darting back and forth as a little sweat breaks out on his brow. He sort of gulps and pulls at his incredibly stiff collar. And I think I'm taking a token for play your stifling part and move freely in society. As I'm just keeping it all down. We have to stay normal for the butler. We're here on normal business and everything is normal.
Perfect.
As Veronica steps in from upstairs, from a voice, she hears a voice on the stairs that says, Veronica? Veronica Highchurch, is that you?
And I think that Veronica kind of grits her teeth. She's not expecting this. She's taken aback and looks up at the stairs. Who does she see there?
It's me, Thaddeus. We were at school. Surely you remember.
I'm going to coldly reject closeness and say, I have no memory of you. Believe you may have me mistaken for someone else.
And you see a sort of anger briefly cross his face. He says, perhaps I was mistaken. I shall take my supper upstairs this evening. Thank you, to the butler. And then walks up the stairs and vanishes.
Puckett, am I the hunter or the hunted right now?
That's a very good question. What was your actual relationship with Thaddeus at school?
I want to say it was actually pretty close.
I mean, the way that I was thinking of him is that he was kind of like the wastrel son that they never expected would do well. The playboy, the playful one. But maybe he kind of pulled you out of your shell a little bit before you found all that tragedy.
It was like
Around
the
yourself like a
budding,
blanket.
the budding of a close friendship that never truly got to happen.
And who knows, it could have been more. You know, perhaps there was a kiss under a tree as it rained in spring.
And I think
All of
like
that is past now.
through all this, Kaine is just looking at first when the voice calls down to Veronica, he sort of looks at Veronica with this like, well, why did I go to all this trouble sort of look? But as things get less and less polite and appropriate, he looks more and more uncomfortable. And as Thaddeus leaves, he just turns to them and says, yes, the lady must be waiting.
Of course, sir, if you would come this way. And he'll take you through to the drawing room where she's probably, you know, maybe in her sort of early 40s, thereabouts, dressed very, very well, not very formally, but dressed in a nice dress, but you know, of appropriate to the time of day. So good to see you again, Mr. Sorry, Thornheart. Please do take a seat. She'll just for you to sit next to her. There are already like tea things out on the table, and as the footman sort of leads you in, he'll get to serving tea for the both of you.
I muted myself instead of unmuting myself. I feel like this is not the appropriate venue for a valet or something, so I'm going to take that as an opportunity to get another token and move unseen and try and make my way back to the actual kind of scene of the murder.
Yeah, perfect. That sounds good.
My lady, I received your letter. We spoke of unfortunate circumstances here at the house that you wanted to keep quiet, respectable, sensible.
Thank you. It's most kind of you to come here. My poor son, Oliver, has met a most gruesome fate, and I know that you have some gifts when it comes to restless spirits, and I wished, amongst other things, to make sure that his spirit is able to move on as it should.
You think it hasn't? Has there been a burial?
Not yet. The men from Scotland Yard said that until they've completed their investigations, we must leave the body where it was found.
Which is
In the gardens. If my husband were here, I am sure he would have words with them, but the inspector said that it was nothing more than hysteria, and that I should remain calm until they've completed their work.
Men of the police are uncultured brutes, insensitive in matters where they should be more careful. But tell me, you could have called any of investigators or detectives of your own. But why call me? What is it that you fear?
I have been having dreams for some time of, I don't know, dark things, dark shapes stalking us here in the house. And now my son is, I don't know, maybe there was something to it. And I know how you have given these. I know that you have some connection to the spirits. I thought maybe you would be able to see what has so troubled the spirits of this place. And I can, of course, reward you if you can cleanse this place of whatever it is that haunts it.
This is no time to speak of rewards or such things. He'll lean forward and take one of her hands between his and say, this tragic event, these dreams, they must truly be haunting you. Please, is there anything, any secret vision or omen or hidden meaning that you've seen? I want to stare directly into her eyes and bewitch her as I sort of hypnotize her and say, take me back into your dream. What do you see? What are you forgetting?
I'm going to throw this over Puckett. Is there anything you want to bring out at this point?
Actually, I was just thinking this would be a perfect place for some nightmares to come into play. And I don't think that she's going to consciously remember them, but you can probably use your abilities to pull these nightmares out of her. And it's just the shadow of great wings blotting out the moonlight, horrible sounds of sucking, sheet white corpses found the next morning, drained completely dry of blood. And it's not that these are things that have actually happened. It's just these are things that have been planted in her head or that she has seen visions of.
And I think as he stares into her eyes and he hears and he sees those dreams, those nightmares flowing out of her, almost like they're drawn to him. He gives a small cry. I think Kaine goes even paler than he normally is. And he falls on the floor, eyes roll back, sort of epileptically twitching as I'm overcome by a vision. And I think he just keeps muttering over and over again, "Wings, the wings, they're flying on the wings, they're coming tonight, they're flying on the wings." I think I'm good with shifting over to Veronica creeping through places.
Yeah, that sounds good. So yeah, Veronica, where do we see you?
I think we pick up Veronica kind of creeping through this garden. I'm assuming that this is like twilight, almost night.
Yeah, I think maybe evening is starting to draw in.
And so there's still kind of this pale glow about everything, but you can see the electric lights start to flicker on around the estate, and there's a couple of weird shadows that don't really quite make sense as all of these different light sources start to kind of mix with each other.
Yeah, and I think you will, as you're going through the garden, you will spot a policeman stood sort of on guard, but he's clearly like quite deliberately not stood too close to where the body actually is, and doesn't seem to be paying all that much attention. So I think you'll be able to get past him without any real difficulty. But yeah, you as I say, as you're closer, there's this body sprawled across the this marble slab, essentially. Clearly has been dead for some time, not like days, but a while. His skin is as pale as the marble was before it was covered in his blood. It's he's clearly very, very dead. This is not an immediate thing, but yeah, what do you do?
I think Veronica kind of goes up and starts like looking over her shoulder, making sure that no one's watching as she kind of starts to like move the body just a little bit, trying to check how stiff it is, look for like wounds or something like that. What should I be on the lookout for here?
Yeah, so I think that the yeah, I think that this is different to the bodies that have been turning up recently, that you have been aware of. There's a certain amount of blood on the scene, which is unusual. They've been found. They haven't been found basically in the places they've been killed. They've been showing up elsewhere. They've been moved from where the murder took place. But when you look at the body and when you look at the skin, you notice that it is more. It's obviously it's been dead for a little while, but the skin looks almost too pale, even for just having it sanguine. It looks like it's got that kind of almost bluish look to it. And as you look closer at the blood, it's thin and much pinker than it is red. Even as it is sort of mostly now splattered across the marble. you this wasn't the victim of a vampire feeding, but you think that this person may have previously been the victim of a vampire, or maybe even one of their thralls. Yeah.
Interesting.
You hear some polite coughing behind you.
I think she whips around, and she's like, by the time she's around, she's already got a knife in her hand.
Oh, I see you're a student of the medical arts, as I am. Alistair Cartwright, doctor. The family asked me to look at the body, see if there were any noteworthy elements to comment on.
Veronica very much doesn't trust this person, but kind of like hides the knife a little bit as best she can. Like, maybe what, like, I don't understand why. Okay. But she nods and says, yes. And I've noticed a few very peculiar elements about this body, and I'm glad that someone with your talents happened to come along while I was investigating. If you would take a look.
It appears the body was exsanguinated.
Yes, that is fairly obvious, but do note the color of the blood. This does not seem natural. Do you have any opinions, Doctor?
Well, I should think that looking at the pinkness of it, that is blood mixed with plasma, not pure blood. That there is more plasma than blood platelets left.
What, in your opinion, would cause such a thing?
Sad to say, unspeakable creatures, loathsome ones. This was either part of some ghastly ritual, or the poor boy was, for lack of a better term, food. Generally speaking, there's more blood left in those that have been fed on.
I think I walk up to him slowly now, and I get right in his face. Then you know what lurks in this garden. You know what hunts these grounds, and know you've been seen here with the body. Tell me, Doctor, do you value your life?
With his left hand, he reaches up and unbuttons his shirt to show you his throat, which has no indications of bite marks.
I think that Veronica, as you're up close to him, you can see his neck and feel his breath. Locked eyes with him, but your attention keeps being drawn as out of the corners of your eyes. You could swear something keeps moving on the marble, like the blood's shifting or the veins of the marble are writhing, but never when you look at them.
I'm going to offer a cryptic and incomplete warning and say, I can see that, Doctor. Let's keep it that way.
I do intend to try. But as one practitioner of the medical arts to another. And he leans in and kind of whispers this in your ear. Next time, bring a set of scalpels. You'll draw much less attention to yourself, and they're just as effective.
I am going to spend a token and ask someone to be part of my life, and say, as I'm assuming that is the like goodbye, I've given you my advice type move, and as Veronica starts walking away, she turns back and asks, "You never told me your name. Do you have a card?"
He smiles, walks back. Cartwright. Alistair Cartwright. Dentist. Barber when necessary. Physic. And on occasion, coroner.
I must say, this is the first time I've been impressed by a dentist. You will. And Veronica Highchurch. My guess is we will be seeing much more of each other very soon.
I hope under less unpleasant and less dire circumstances. Preferably in daylight. And he walks off.
Awesome, that was cool. So yeah, I think we'll probably draw a close on those scenes at the house now. So I guess I'll check in. So Puckett, I think it would be cool to get a scene with Cassie in. Do you or does anyone else have any ideas of what we might go for with that?
I also want to see Lee at some point, and do we want to have those two be the same scene? Because that's an interesting relationship that we don't really have fleshed out at all.
Yeah, we can do. I'm just wondering if it might be useful to have more of a linking scene first, just because I'm not quite sure what we'd be going for in scene with just two of those at the minute. Well, I say just two of those, obviously it doesn't have to be, but yeah. I
don't know, maybe there's like someone that y'all have to track down, someone less high and fancy but connected with this house or this murder in some way.
Yeah, no, that works.
I think it makes sense to have Cassie kind of rush up to Veronica to get information about everything that she saw. Was it exciting? Was it thrilling? That sort of giddiness, then get dragged into the investigation.
Yeah,
Does
that sounds good.
reasonable?
Oh, does Cassie just like somehow like, oh, I've heard of that. Of course, that's this.
Maybe.
That's good. Does somebody want to pick up a setting element and kind of frame the scene for the two of us? Or Puckett, do you want to frame the scene? Because I'm curious where Cassie would be that that Veronica would come and visit.
It might be that Veronica's someplace and Cassie's been looking for her.
I feel like the places that Veronica hangs out are not the places where the uptight young woman that Cassie needs to kind of pretend to be or actually is. I don't know. I feel like she would not be necessarily welcome in a lot of those places. Do you want that kind
Yep.
of? Okay, perfect.
That sounds good.
Yes.
Because I've got this picture of her as she knows what she's supposed to do, and then there's what she wants to do.
Well,
Yeah.
we've got taverns and theaters as an aesthetic that we wanted to hit. So maybe there's like this kind of like the old wood-walled tavern, this very kind of like everything's just reeks of very stale beer. Kind of this gritty, grimy pub that the typical clientele are probably fishermen or dock workers. Maybe it's near the port, near the Thames.
Board for throwing knives, not a dartboard, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think as y'all are or at least as Cassie, is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah. As Cassie is getting close to the tavern where Veronica is, I think you pass like a newspaper boy on the corner. He's selling papers, and you see the top headline that he's barking about is the Learmonth murder, and how police are now saying that it was obviously a dispute over inheritance, that it was someone within the family, and it was just like it was a simple stabbing at the house, and they've almost got the case wrapped up.
And as she passes that and hears it, she just looks back and goes, and so I think she just throws up to open the tavern door, and it's one of those record scratch moments and she like looks around over the heads of as many people as she can until she sees you, and then just rushes over to you.
Yeah. What about Veronica's kind of apparel and getup makes you like the first thing you do is like you wrinkle your nose and it's a little bit disgusting?
I think you probably stepped in something that no one there cares about, but I can smell it. And it's just a little, it rises above the odor that already permeates this place.
Yeah, I like accidentally stepped in a horse dropping or something. That's now following me around. I can barely smell it anymore, but you can pick that up for whatever reason.
I think Cassie, like as you're rushing up to the table, you almost get there when like right in front of you steps very large, like the barkeep here at this inn, an apron and a large belly as he's like towering over you, but with this very kindly expression on his face of, "Oh, young lady, you seem to have gotten lost and wandered into the wrong place. This is not the sort of place for you." And he looks over his shoulder at Veronica.
There's a wham as Veronica slams her like mug onto the table. She's not lost.
You see, my friend Vicky is here. She knows.
I told you not to call me that.
He'll look very uncomfortable as he sort of steps out of the way, but he'll lean into Cassie and say, "I'm sorry, but I don't think that's the sort of woman you want to be associating with."
She's my friend, and I rather think she's daring. I like that about her.
Yes, as you say, young mistress. He'll step back and he looks very awkward and confused and not happy.
I think Veronica holds up the mug and says, "Can I get 2 more of these?"
You're buying me a drink?
Done this so many times. Yes, buying you a drink.
Well, the first few times you said they were both for you so that you could tolerate me.
I've gotten over that now.
So tell me, what did you find?
I have this mental image of Cassie going up to this dirty bench and like laying a napkin on the bench before she sits down to not get her dress dirty. If that's okay with you. But Veronica kind of like raises her eyebrow at Cassie and is like, "You're not even going to like say hello or congratulate
yes.
me on getting out all right?"
Hello, you found information. You're as wonderful as I knew that you were and as I thought you were. Yes, all that. But what did you find?
Oh, it's nothing much. Seems to be another one of these monstrous attacks. There's an awful lot of blood this time. It's very strange, mysterious blood. I'm not quite sure what to make of it. It's very off-colored.
You mean it's not red or blue?
No, it's a pale pink.
Do you remember that time we were in this bar? And there was a fight between those 2 men who were very, very, very drunk. And the blood didn't come out quite as dark as it should have. And you told me that it was because there was so much alcohol in their bloodstream. Like the blood was very thin and it wasn't quite as red as it should have been.
I do remember that. At first I was very confused because I've stopped a lot of fights, but and she just kind of like stops for a second and stares into her empty mug, thinking.
It was very exciting. It was the first fight I've ever seen in a bar.
Tossing over to the setting element, which of my monsters is working against me right now?
Curious, what do you think the question means? What are your monsters, do you think?
I mean, specifically, my monsters are myself, my faults in myself, the loved one who betrayed me, or a monster in the shadows.
Gotcha.
All right.
And likewise, and I got to ask this because it's just too perfect, especially given the setting. What kind of trouble don't I know I'm in?
I think I can take that one. As you hear the door open and in comes a group of like a dozen or more men. Obviously factory workers, all of them in worn out clothes and like streaked with grime. Several of them with like obvious wounds that have been bandaged. Like I think one of them is missing a hand, even. But they come in, they claim a set of tables and order drinks as you're, they're sort of in the background of your conversation. And I think what you don't really catch on to, Cassie, but maybe Veronica's a bit more savvy, is like the looks that your table, and especially you, Cassie, keep getting from these men. Especially as like the second pitcher of beer comes to the table as they get into their third and fourth cups. They're even starting to be like ones of them nudging the other ones and obvious like comments that they're half whispering and laughing loudly at each other. You have an idea about monsters, David?
Yeah, I think I think as we see this like group of loud factory workers come in and start kind of causing a distraction, we see a figure in dark clothes, in fact, dressed in a very similar fashion to Veronica herself. That sort of like could pass anywhere sort of thing. Kind of a dark, very plain suit that could be, the valet to a lord or a junior clerk or just a labourer who's been out for something on some formal business, has just slipped in, and I think whilst this distraction is going on, they are watching. They're sort of leant against the bar, watching what's going on. They have a like a mug of beer in their hand, but they have very clearly not drunk anything from it.
This kind of feels like it might be a good time for Lee to show up.
Maybe he already has.
Yeah, I think I may make an introduction for him at the moment, but I think I'm interested to see what's the initial reaction here first, and then I'll probably leap in with Lee as depending on how things go.
I was wondering if Lee was the person at the bar.
Oh no, that's definitely a vampire. Sorry, I'll be explicit about that. Yeah, no, that's
okay. I think Veronica sees these two kind of dangers happening at the same time, and I wonder if this is a like, if we get involved with one, the other one won't have time or won't be able to get in and do anything because all of the attention of the bar will be kind of all on us. And
I would just like to add that Cassie is completely oblivious to all of this.
yes. And I think I'm going to lash out suddenly at all of these drunk workers. And just kind of shout across the bar and say, "Oi, if you're interested in getting, if you're interested in a fight, why don't you come over here and face me head on and stop just looking at us from over there."
And I think one of the men stands up and he sort of hits the one next to him on the shoulder and says, "You can have the little dainty one, Fred. I like a woman with a good mouth on her." He stumbles sort of through the tables and up to you with half a mug of beer. Says, "So, you wanted to get physical with things here?"
And I think Veronica like stands up and walks around the table to get in between this person and Cassie. I'm curious what the bartender's actions are right now, because Veronica's gonna look over at the barkeep. Has this happened before? Is this a like the bartender's just like prepping for something? What's their reaction?
The bartender actually seems like oddly distracted. They don't really seem to be focusing on anything much at the moment.
Oh, okay. That's worrying, and all the more reason for me to deal with this quickly.
You know, at this point, I'm going to stand up and say, Veronica, please, there's absolutely no reason for a fight. And I'm going to spend the token that I got from asking, what trouble don't I know I'm in, to calmly de-escalate the fight or argument. And I'm going to turn to the dock workers and say, you must have had a long day. It must be thirsty work.
We've been known to put away a few drinks.
And here I am tenderly caring for someone who is, I'm not sure that it's hurt or distraught exactly, but certainly agitated. So you're obviously a very strong man.
Well, yes, I work at the factory. We move large things all day.
I bet you protect those you care about, don't you?
I suppose he's getting way more confused. This conversation keeps going in strange directions.
It's a good man that takes care of those that takes care of others.
Well, yes, ma'am. Well, you know, my mother raised me to look out for family.
I hope your mother knows what a good man she raised. I hope she's proud of you.
Of course, I try to make her proud. I try to do right by my mom.
Does this count as feigning innocence or weakness to quell a conflict?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And at this point, I'm going to say, you seem very, very thirsty. Here, Veronica here bought a beer, but I couldn't possibly drink it all. I would just be, you know how us ladies are, particularly when we have a little bit of the drink in us. Do you think you could finish it for me?
Oh, well, certainly, yes, ma'am. Well, we wouldn't want you to. This is a, dangerous place, dangerous peoples, and you wouldn't want to keep your head. Yes, I'll bye.
But you haven't even told me your name.
He's like half turned away, and William, ma'am.
Thank you, William. You've been most helpful this evening. You're a good man.
Yes.
Veronica's eyebrows at this point look like they're about to fly off her face. They're so just incredulous at this whole conversation that just happened.
And I turn
William
back to you.
At this point is like blushing bright red as he backs away and gets loudly made fun of as he sits back down at the table.
And at this point, I'm just going to turn back to Veronica and make sure that no one's really looking or can see, and I'm going to wink.
I'm going to honestly tell you how I feel about you and say, I'm honestly impressed by that.
you have to know that you have to know different ways to deal with people. And this is one of the reasons I envy you so much, Veronica. In my world, as much as I wish it were otherwise, stabbing is almost never an option.
That's where you're wrong. Stabbing is always an option.
It would be most frowned upon.
But
I'm curious.
I'm gonna kill you.
Was that flirtation and smiling at someone unexpected, or as part of the defusing, would it become expected to smile at someone with that flirtation? Thoughts?
I don't know that you went full like flirtatious mode.
Okay,
At
fair
that
enough.
point, I feel like that still falls into the
I'll settle for the 2 tokens instead of
quelling the-
pushing for 3.
quelling the conflict. Yeah.
Sure thing. Cool. So yeah, I think if we bring that scene to a close there and take another quick break until 1:15, and then we'll get back and play a little more. But yeah, see you all in a few minutes. Cool. So yeah, I think that I should probably do a scene involving Lee at this point. So I'm wondering if there is anything anyone else particularly wants to pick up with Lee. I was wondering maybe a scene with between Kaine and Lee, either Kaine,
Love to, yeah.
either Kaine recruiting Lee or sort of in the middle of something. Either way works for me. And then we'll kind of maybe go through that relatively quickly, and then just see if we can get like a last scene to loop some people back in with each other after that. I'd say work towards a climax, but I think in many ways the big climaxy action bits are often the bits that BOB doesn't do in as interesting a way anyway. So I feel like the lead up is as much as interesting as anything else.
So I said like pulling Lee in. I can pass back. I could definitely see like Kaine having called Lee to his house. Like he's, he got back up and out of the manor, but is sort of in his home, recovering under the weather, sick from the possession sort of thing.
Yeah, that sounds good. So yeah, I think Lee has shown up at Kaine's place. Where is the sort of what's the sort of house that Kaine lives in like? Is it sort of a townhouse, or does he just have sort of an apartment somewhere?
I think it's like a townhouse. It's a couple of floors, but it's relatively narrow.
Yeah.
It's somewhere moderately expensive, but not like the wealthy districts.
Yeah, sure thing. So I think Lee has made a vague effort to look a bit smarter than he might normally. He is sort of wearing a suit, though again it was a nice suit at one point, but it's clearly not been, he clearly has not had a valet taking care of it for him. It's rumpled and a little distressed looking, but he is wearing it as he kind of knocks on the door at Kaine's place.
And it takes a moment before you hear the door being unlocked and opened. and it's Kaine there, and I think in sort of contrast to Lee having dressed up, like Kaine is in his shirt sleeves, like top couple of buttons undone. He looks disheveled. His eyes are like, even for him, more sunken and bruised than you've seen before. He seems to sort of be leaning on the door frame. Lee, you're here.
Thornheart, you look worse than me, and that's saying something.
If you're going to flatter me like that, then you can definitely come in.
I do my best to please. And yeah, he'll follow Kaine into the house.
I would love to pick up the Specter of Modernity. Can I suggest that Kaine has like a laboratory or a medical station or something that he uses?
Interesting.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think there's like a room in here on the bottom floor that's been turned into nothing so clearly purposed as like medicine, but there's definitely tubes and vials and colored liquids and bubbling things for no apparent reason. And he'll lead you back there and grab a beaker of something like virulently green and still smoking a little bit as he tosses it back. Seems to almost come a little bit more to himself. He says, Lee, thank you for coming. I don't know how to, it's back. It's stalking people. It's stalking me. Again, I don't know where. I haven't seen it, but I heard it. I heard its wings. It's back and it's feeding again.
This thing you says has been in your dreams, and been stalking you. Look, I don't know if this is more a priest thing, and I'm definitely not that, but I'll stay with you if you need until you think it's safe.
I hate to need. It's embarrassing.
It's not like my social calendar is full of other pressing engagements. It's this or getting shit-faced and getting in a fight, so might as well be this.
I'm curious, do either of you notice that the shadows on the walls almost look like warped humans?
Kaine hasn't taken his eyes off of Lee.
Yeah, I don't think that Lee has particularly noticed either.
Say, I was trying to be helpful. I was getting Veronica in to investigate. You heard about the murder, the Learmonth murder?
Yes, Ollie. I was a year or two ahead of him at school. I knew him vaguely. Shame, I suppose.
I was with the lady. I was getting somewhere. There was something I was trying to uncover, but then it happened again. One of my fits. I fell. I lost a few hours. I woke up on the couch being fanned by the butler. I hardly did anything. And I wanted to ask you, he's like laying out all of his deficiencies and faults. What do you really think of me?
Look, Thornheart, I don't know. I don't know what it is that you're putting up with. I've seen some weird things. I've been to places. There's more out there than anyone knows, I think, but I don't think this is something you're making up. I think this is I think you're strong, I guess, to put up with what you are seeing. A different kind of strength, maybe, but I'm sure you'll find out how to deal with this thing. I'll help you stop it.
And Lee, as you're going around this room, just kind of looking through things, you notice something. And you notice a diagram of something that's been kind of laid out and half obscured on a table. What is on this diagram that even you as a monster are a little taken aback by?
I think it's I think it is maybe like it's maybe like a kind of is like a dissection diagram, but it's like marked up with weird, like alchemical symbols and other sort of markings like that. And it seems to be almost like not just a guide to like dissecting a person, but to like almost like distilling a person, like taking out their essence and then I think that he kind of shifts the paper that's on top of it and just like stares at it for a moment, and just a shudder passes over him before he kind of carries on pacing around the room.
And I think like Kaine looks uncomfortable as he sees you noticing that. He'll, as you're pacing around the room in front of him again, he'll put out an arm to sort of grab you by the bicep to stop you. As he says, look, there are dark things in this city, and I wish I could stand up against them by myself, but I've never had the strength. It's always been you, and I've seen you hurt, I've seen you bleed, I've seen you lose people to the dark. Why do you keep coming back? Why do you keep digging further into the things that haunt this city, into the things that haunt me? And you realize his hand has never left your arm, and he's stepped in closer, staring at you. I would ask, what do you secretly desire right now?
Yeah, I think he definitely desires physical closeness with someone. I mean, like specifically with Kaine, and it's not inherently sexual. You don't think necessarily, though it also is. But there's definitely that like emptiness in him, and yeah. But I think he just chuckles and sort of says, look, I did the hunting and traveling to Venice and all the other things. I've done all the lordly pursuits. Now I'm bored. What better is there to do than see the darker side of this city? It's something to do. And I'm going to take a token there for deflecting questions or concern with bravado.
And I think there's almost the twitch of a smile at Kaine's mouth as he says, "Are you sure? It's just boredom, nothing more?" And as I claim my desires as part of me, he will lean in to kiss you.
Yeah, and I think that he will kiss him back, and I think he'll kind of growl into Kaine's neck. And I certainly wouldn't object to spending more time with you. Right now, maybe.
I do need a protector. Tonight's a long, cold time.
Then maybe we should try and keep each other warm.
Ah, it's lovely.
Yeah, and I'm happy to draw that to black there, and I will also take another token for losing myself in violence, intoxicants, or sex. So
Nice. I love how the same scene like built you up on tokens and
cool. So I guess we'll just have a quick chat again. Obviously, like we're probably only realistically going to get like one more good scene in, I think. So I guess my question is, what would people like to see in this last sort of scene, or possibly two short scenes if we want to kind of do it that way? But because as I said, in some ways, I think like an actual confrontation with the forces of darkness isn't really playing into the strengths of the game, though we can do that if people fancy it. But it might be cool to just get like a almost maybe to do like the I don't know. I mean, what depending on what people want. I'll throw it open. I'll ask people just for ease of internet. But Sam, how about you? Is there anything you'd like to sort of us to address, like in a final scene, or anything you think would be cool to do?
There's a lot of like little things that would be cool to see, but nothing that's like super burning. I have to see this before the end, because my feeling is that a lot of these like more complicated relationships aren't gonna wrap up nicely, and that's fantastic, and I love that. And everything I can think to do would be like, well, we need to have a showdown between Lee and Veronica again, but I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if we can actually have that wrap up before the end.
Sure. No, that's cool. No, that's some good thoughts. Thank you. Puckett, how about you? Is there anything you would like to see, or that you think would be a good place to start wrapping things up on? And we can probably fit in some pluggy stuff as well at the end. But like I said, I think just looking at the time, we've probably only really got one good scene left in.
I am honestly okay with whatever. What I do want is a longer run of this, because I'd really like to be able to kick the tires on the mechanics and get into the relationships. And as you've pointed out, we're not going to be able to do much of that. So I'm honestly okay with whatever.
Yeah.
So if somebody has something that they really want to do, let's do that. If somebody has something they kind of want to do, let's do that, because I'm honestly okay with whatever.
Sure thing. In terms of a follow-up, I'm definitely willing. We'll have that chat offline. But if we can find time when we could, I'm definitely happy to do a couple more sessions of this. So yeah, that'd be cool. But yeah, no, thanks. That's awesome. And yeah, Patrick, how about you? Do you have any thoughts of where we might go next?
As far as personal character moments, I had the hot werewolf boy growl into my neck, and I can't think of anything better than that. So, I am satisfied. But I would definitely love to see another scene with Lee, to see a different side of him. And we've only seen Cassie once, so I think a scene between the two of them, whatever it is, would be really interesting to see.
Yeah. So yeah, no, that's I'm happy to go with something like that. I guess my thoughts are we could maybe have a scene where and obviously in terms of Cassie, whatever you would like to see as well is cool, but and not wanting to get too far into the whole damsel in distress thing, but at the same time you are playing the ward, and which is the character of being a damsel in distress. So but I'm wondering if maybe there could be a scene where either I forget my own character's name, where either Lee or Lee and Veronica maybe are coming to Cassie's rescue against some creatures of the night, possibly after she's gone off doing the whole nosing into things that perhaps she shouldn't. Maybe something along those lines. Does that sound good?
Fine by me. I mean, I could also be off having a picnic with a vampire or something like that.
Yeah, I mean,
it seems like that's something that she would think is a good idea. Sure, let's go on a picnic after dark. That sounds delightful. We could picnic under the full moon. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, that sounds cool. So yeah, I guess Veronica, if you want to sort of get in on this and get some hunting on as well, that's cool. Or if you'd rather stick to playing setting elements, that's also good. Again, likewise with Kaine, if you feel like being there in person, that's cool. But I kind of had the impression that maybe if you want to take over some of the setting element side of things.
Yeah, I don't need Kaine to be there, but if no one has a more specific idea, it would be wonderfully twisted and complicated if the dangerous potential monster that Cassie's having a picnic with was Thaddeus.
Also, socially appropriate. Her father couldn't possibly get angry about that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's such a nice reputation.
And from a good family and with old money, and look at the estate.
Yeah, if we're going to do that, I'm happy to pick up the Embrace of Night. If Patrick, you want to do the Sins of the Past, maybe as... I
was definitely looking at the Sins of the Past.
Yeah,
awesome.
That's good.
Although in Cassie's case, she's probably looking more at the Sins of the Future. But
cool. So in which case, I guess it makes sense if you want to sort of set up that scene, and at some point Lee will barge in on things, I'm sure, when it's looking dangerous.
I mean, I think the thing that makes sense to do is, do you think it'd be more entertaining to have them going for a stroll on Thaddeus's family grounds or for a carriage ride?
Oh, I think a stroll with the like empty places and fog that we have.
Hmm. So like an evening stroll?
Yeah, around the estate sort of thing.
Gotcha. A sunset promenade.
So
Love it.
which way do you think, like, Cassie sought this out because she's trying to get involved in the mystery, or do you think Thaddeus sought this out because he's trying to spite Veronica?
I'm thinking the latter, because I think that Cassie would love to be involved in the mystery if she knew what the mystery was. So I think the thing, as is so often the case in life, I think the thing that protects Cassie most of all is that she just isn't aware of what she's blundering into half the time. Not even half the time, probably like 99% of the time. And she stumbles across things and it's like, oh, the mystery. This must be what everybody's been talking about. Or she follows Veronica into it. So without Veronica around, she just kind of like blunders into things on her own. Does that seem reasonable?
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Like she really wants to be involved with this stuff, but everybody's actually pretty good at saying, you're not that good at this stuff, until she wanders into it and then, like, gives a drunk factory worker like 2/3 of a beer and somehow manages to settle everything.
Yeah. And
So who's playing Thaddeus?
Take Thaddeus. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
You want to set our scene, Sam?
Yeah, sure. I love the idea that you are kind of on this midnight, or sorry, kind of late evening stroll around this large estate that's not nearly as large as it used to be, but it's still large enough to give you two plenty of time to talk and plenty of space between the street lights to be in darkness all to yourselves. And you make your way around and you're chatting about nothings and some things and sometimes everythings. And eventually you kind of make your way under this lightly flickering street light. And I think the first time that Cassie really feels worried or like there's something going on here, you look up at Thaddeus's face, and when you do, there's kind of a rustle of wind and leaves, and you swear you can hear people talking in the wind. And there's something that says, "Don't trust him. Run. You have to run."
Okay. So right off the bat, just to get it out of the way, what kind of trouble don't I know I'm in?
I think do we do the stereotypical, like, of course, I've already forgot your NPC's name, I'm sorry.
Thaddeus.
Thaddeus?
Thaddeus, yeah. Does Thaddeus have like the blood red cravat type deal that he's wearing?
Yeah, I think he does. And as you sort of imagine, Cassie like stops as she hears the sound. He turns toward you with this sharp, broad smile that shows off like gleaming white teeth. As he says, "Miss Winthrop, thank you again for accepting my invitation. You know, your father and mine have known each other for so long. I dearly wish my father were in town to have greeted you himself, but he's away again on business. But he always spoke so highly of Lord Winthrop, said he was the pillar of propriety, that he was a solid rock that you could always trust to act as he should.
And I'll put my hand on your arm and say, honestly, I'm just delighted to be able to get out of the house. You know, I'm sure you know what it's like to live with those expectations and the pressures and the propriety. And when all you really want to do is almost anything other than what they want you to do. And I'm going to take off my shoes here because we're walking on grass and I don't need to wear them. I'm just going to carry them in my hand.
I will admit, although you must promise not to tell anyone, that I do find the house a more comfortable place to be now that Win father is gone. When he goes on his trips, especially extended ones, it just brings a new air into the house.
Doesn't it though? I mean, being free from just being free.
Exactly.
And I think I'm just going to frame a quick, cutaway here to, there's kind of the wrap of a cane on sort of the gates to the house, and the sort of the sort of doorman will come out, and Lee is in like an actually fancy suit this time with the sort of top hat and cane and everything, as I'm going to spend a token to shapeshift physically or socially. And he says, dear man, sorry to trouble you. I'm here to see young Thad. Is it all right if I just go through? I'll find him. Don't trouble yourself. And sort of breezes past the doorman.
I think the doorman kind of shouts back at you. I believe the master is out. I can leave him a note if you like. And you hear another voice. You hear a voice on the wind that says, "They're in the garden. You have to hurry. There's not much time left."
Nice.
Definitely queuing off of that. I think what the camera flicks back to outside as that he says, "Please come this way. I've been wanting to show you. We've seen all the garden paths here, but you must see the crown jewel of the house, my favorite spot in the entire yard. It's a what was it? A gazebo? Yeah. It's marble. It's very special too. Please come, and you can tell me more about your family. I had heard that your father had made some rather surprising and wise acquisitions recently."
Is that the piece of marble where Vicky found the corpse?
Excuse me?
The marble you're talking about. Vicky mentioned that she was examining a corpse on the marble.
Oh.
She said it was quite bloodless and that there was some fluid leaking out of it, but it was more pink than blood. And we wondered if perhaps that was due to alcohol consumption.
No, my brother. Yes, my brother. No, but it was somewhere else. What sort of person do you take me for that I would take you to?
Obviously, the adventurous sort.
Is this where Lee shows up?
I'm happy for this to play out a little bit longer. If I'll give Cassie a chance to develop further if you'd like first.
This is terribly embarrassing. I'm sorry, but you have rather caught me. I was hoping to surprise you with a spooky ghost story late at night,
Ghosts are so
Yep.
pedestrian. I much prefer that Stoker fellow's work.
Yes, it's very visceral, isn't it? Well, I can see that my plan to get you excited with a little scares are much braver than that. Would you like to see it?
To see what?
The spot, the blood, where he breathed his last.
Where who breathed his last? I thought we were just talking about Mr. Stoker and his literary works. Are you telling me that he died here?
So, no, not it's my brother. Oliver? The dead one?
Oh, yes, him. He was always such a stick in the mud. The most interesting thing he ever did was die.
Most profitable. But please, it's just around here.
I will just have you know that I am not the kind of girl who would go knees to the sky simply for being shown a pedestal of marble that had some blood on it once.
Sorry. I have to say, honestly, I'm not quite sure at the moment what sort of woman to take you for.
Well, you shouldn't take me for any sort of woman. You should only take a woman who's giving herself to you. And don't you get any ideas, young man?
Of course. Entirely trustworthy. Think about how respectable my family's name is. What could you possibly have to fear here?
I'll tell you what I have to fear here. Respectability. Respectability has been the deaths of more people than anyone would care to admit.
I have no idea. I'm wondering, as we come out of the sort of wooded path to see the gazebo, do we see Lee there?
Yes, I think Lee is leaning against one of the columns. He's got his sort of he's holding sort of his hat in his hand, and he will kind of raise it as he says, Thad, Miss Winthrop, pleasure to see you both. Lovely evening
what
for
a
Stowe.
pleasant surprise. What brings you around tonight?
Oh, I just was visiting with Mr. Thornheart. He said I ought to drop round and see how everything was going. How are you both?
Thad here was just about to show me a piece of bloody marble.
Yes. He'll kind of gesture. Yes, it's a terrible, terrible business that, so I hear.
Well, as I was just telling Thad, the only interesting thing his brother ever did was die, so I'm not sure how terrible it was for him, actually, but... Well, for him, probably terrible. But for the rest of us, he finally was interesting.
Thaddeus will step forward and put out his hand. Mr. Lambert? Yes?
That's right, yes.
How wonderful to finally meet you after all of the stories that I've heard. Please come join us on our walk. And Cassie, what a lovely suit. It reminds me so of the one that we buried my uncle in last decade.
Thank you. I do try and keep as up on fashion as my circumstances allow.
I think you look quite lovely tonight, Lee.
That's quite all right, Miss Winthrop. You're
Cassie,
you flatter
please.
me. Cassie, as you wish.
And I do no such thing. I speak my mind plain and true.
Of course, and I would not wish to suggest otherwise, of course.
Yes, Mr. Lambert, our Cassie here is a very modern and free-thinking woman.
Well, with the lack of chaperone, one can only assume so.
But now I have 2 chaperones. That's twice the fun, isn't it?
Indeed, indeed.
Yes, well, it's over this way if you're still interested in looking.
Since you seem so intent on showing me, let's. Are you sad that he's gone, Oliver?
Oh, yes, tragic. It's really torn my family apart.
Oh, I may as well. I'm going to spend a token to ask who here intends violence.
You mean besides you?
Besides me, yeah.
I think Thaddeus is showing the 2 of you to the gazebo, and he leans down to show Cassie this. You can see almost the outline of his body. My brother's ghost forever haunting this place. You see it here? As he leans forward to point it out, you see like his jacket is open, his vest shifts, and you can see like part of what looks to be a very, very large kitchen knife that is hidden under his jacket in the back of his pants.
Yeah, excellent. And I will immediately, I think, therefore, follow up by spending my final token. As he's sort of showing Cassie the slab, Lee sort of is walking up behind him and just like picks up his cane in like a double-handed grip and just swings it at the back of Thaddeus's head to knock him out cold on the floor. As yes, I'm going to overwhelm an obstacle through brute force.
Nice. I think as he's falling and before he passes out, he seems to react oddly, not with pain, but he laughs almost with joy as he, in a woozy voice, saying, "Yes, it's about time to add another body to your list, don't you think, Lee?"
I do apologize for intruding Cassie, but it is probably best if we leave this place. It is not safe. And
Well,
he'll
what do you mean
offer
it's
his
not
arm.
safe?
I think the young master here is only the tip of the problems this place faces.
Should we put him on the marble?
It's probably best we don't. Call it superstition.
Do you think it's because the marble possesses people who place bodies on it? Or
I would rather not find out.
Lee, it seems silly to just leave him here if he intended me harm.
I suppose we can take him back and see what Veronica wants done with him.
And I would like to spend a token here to win someone heart or loyalty with kindness.
Awesome.
So, yes, we may be taking him to Veronica, but this is in a way showing him kindness, and I expect Thad's loyalty after this.
Awesome.
Nice.
Awesome. Cool. And I think that is where we will wrap things up for this evening. So thank you very much for that, everyone. That's been a lot of fun. I'm going to stop our recording now.